There was never a closing episode of The Jeffersons.
Never was, and that's what I'm upset about until today. My cousin in New York is the one that called me and said, I understand the Jeffersons has been canceled.
Suddenly, The Jeffersons was canceled, shocking everyone involved. Mike Evans, also known as Lionel Jefferson, was crucial, linking the Jeffersons to All in the Family at only 26. On screen, he often clashed with his parents, bringing humor and realness to his role. But when the show ended without warning, rumors and uncertainty filled the air, leaving the cast in the dark. What happened to throw their lives into such disaster? Let us reveal the intense transformations that rocked the lives of the Jeffersons cast. The silent curtain call of a sitcom classic. It seemed to go unnoticed by many, but the abrupt cancellation of the TV show, The Jeffersons, after 10 years and 11 seasons, left a significant impact. The show's sudden end came without any prior notice to the actors or crew, a move that stirred much confusion and disappointment. This narrative delves into the aftermath of the show's conclusion, exploring the lives of the cast members, following their departure from the sitcom, and uncovering some of the more peculiar occurrences that followed. As the investigation goes on, a shocking discovery is made, one that could change how everyone sees the Jeffersons. Hidden truths are about to come out, showing there's more to the show's end than anyone knew. Lionel, whose real name was Mike Evans, was the only son of George and Louise. He was driven and intelligent, but sometimes he came across as a bit naive. He had a strong sense of right and wrong and wasn't afraid to speak his mind. There was a constant back and forth between him and his parents, filled with yes and no arguments that showed just how persistent he could be. He was born on October 18, 1953, which made him about 22 when the show started in 1975. Mike Evans, on the other hand, was born on November 3, 1949, and was 26 when the show kicked off. Even though he wasn't the main character, his role was vital to the creation of the series, which was a spin-off from the very popular All in the Family. He actually appeared in the very first episode of All in the Family in 1971, before his own family was introduced. But here's where it gets interesting. He was one of the first black sitcom characters on TV who had a lot of screen time and wasn't afraid to speak up against any racist comments from white characters. This was a bold move by the network, which was unsure how the audience would react to a smart young black man who could outwit his white neighbors with his clever comebacks. While working on All in the Family, Evans wanted to do more with his role. So he came up with an idea and pitched it to Norman Lear, the show's creator, about introducing his parents. Lear loved the idea, and soon enough George and Louise made their debut. They became so popular that they got their own show. Evans did come back to the show from the 6th to the 8th season, and then again from the 9th to the 11th. But unfortunately, his time on the show ended quietly, without much recognition. One of the main actors, Sherman Hemsley, who played George, found out about the cancellation in a surprising way. He was reading a newspaper when he saw the news. He was confused and kept thinking that they would return to the set soon, only to realize there would be no return at all. Isabel Sanford, who played Louise, learned about the show's abrupt end from a relative. She too was left shocked and searching for confirmation. After the show's sudden end, another actor, Damon Evans, who took over starting in the 2nd season, decided to leave acting altogether. He turned his attention to real estate investment instead, where he found a lot of success. Damon chose to live a very private life after leaving the show, and he passed away at the age of 57 from throat cancer on December 14, 2006. But let's take a step back to see how Damon even got involved in the show. He originally joined the cast to replace Mike Evans, who played the original Lionel. Norman Lear, the show's creator, noticed Damon in a television commercial after Mike left following the 1st season. Damon had always wanted to be part of a Norman Lear production and admired the lessons in Lear's shows. However, he had never watched the show before joining the cast. He was busy working at night and attending school, which made it hard for him to connect with the character at first. Over time, he shaped the role to match his style, but he realized he didn't enjoy acting in sitcoms. He often missed work and finally left the show after 4 seasons to return to his first love, musical theater. Let's see what's next for our TV stars after the spotlight dims. The unseen layers of TV legends. Though Damon appeared in a few minor TV roles after the show, none of them were very notable. He was open about his intimate violence and happily married, though he kept his personal life and details about his husband private. On another note, Berlinda Tolbert played Jenny Willis, who was his wife and the biracial daughter of an interracial couple, Tom and Helen Willis. Jenny was smart and pursued a career in fashion design. She met him in college and they later had a daughter named Jessica. However, their marriage eventually ended in divorce. Interestingly, Berlinda was born in the same month and year as both Damon and Mike, who played the original Lionel, showing a unique coincidence among the cast. In the early days, George, his father, disapproved of Jenny because of her mixed heritage, often making hurtful comments, which reflected the show's exploration of racial and social issues. Harry Bentley, whose real name was Paul Benedict, was George and Louise's quirky English neighbor. He worked as a Russian translator at the United Nations. Harry was always polite and tried to help, but his good intentions often annoyed George, leading to many moments where George would slam the door in his face. "I've drunk your water and your wine. I've watched the way you live," as they might say. Even though we don't know exactly how old Harry was supposed to be, we can guess he was around the same age as Paul Benedict, the actor who played him, who was born on September 17, 1938. That would make him about 37 when the show started. And even though Harry often got on George's nerves, George would sometimes help out by walking on Harry's back to relieve his back pain. They had to stop that in later seasons because Benedict had gained weight, and it was getting risky to keep it up. Benedict played Harry so well that people thought he was really British. He had a condition called acromegaly, where the pituitary gland makes too much growth hormone, changing how a person looks, especially in the face. But he didn't let that slow him down. Instead, he used it to add more humor to his roles. Here's a fun fact. Irwin Keyes, who appeared in 5 episodes of The Jeffersons, had the same condition. After The Jeffersons, Benedict continued to have a steady career in both theater and film. He's especially remembered for his role in the 1996 Broadway play, Hoy with Al Pacino, and for playing the Mad Painter on Sesame Street. His last acting role was in the 2008 comedy Side by Each, where he played Chief Rodro. Sadly, he passed away later that year, on December 1st, from a brain hemorrhage at the age of 70, leaving behind his wife, Marianne. Next, we uncover more stories and secrets from the past, behind the scenes of TV's most beloved families. But that's not where the stories end. Let's talk about Mother Jefferson, played by Zara Cully. She was George Jefferson's mother, known for her sharp wit and her ability to say exactly what was on her mind, which often led to clashes with her daughter-in-law, Louise. Even though they argued a lot, their disagreements were mostly lighthearted, and they genuinely cared for each other. Mother Jefferson was known to enjoy her drinks, especially Bloody Marys, which she claimed helped her think. According to her character's backstory, Mother Olivia Jefferson was born in 1901, which would make her 74 at the start of the show. But in real life, Zara Cully, who played her, was actually born on January 26, 1892, making her almost 10 years older than the character. During the 3rd season, Cully became very ill with a collapsed lung and pneumonia, which kept her off the show for that season. She returned for season 4 but fell ill again, this time with cancer. Sadly, she passed away during that season on February 28th. In 1978, when Clyde passed away in real life, the creators of the show decided that his character on the series should also meet the same fate. The character we're talking about, Florence Johnston, was played by the talented Marla Gibbs. Florence was the quick-witted housekeeper for George and Louise, always ready with a smart comeback that never failed to annoy George. Despite their frequent arguments, she always showed respect by calling them Mr. and Mrs. Jefferson. George often complained about Florence's housekeeping, saying she was lazy and even thinking about firing her more than once. However, Louise always stepped in and made sure Florence stayed with them. There was one time when George got so annoyed that he asked Florence what she planned to do with an apple, hinting that he wanted to use it for fishing the next day. Florence's clever replies were a big part of her character, including a memorable line that left everyone scratching their heads the first time they heard it. Florence was born in 1931, the same year as Marla Gibbs, the actress who played her. Both were around 44 years old when the series started. At first, Florence was only supposed to be in a few episodes, but her charm quickly won over the audience, and she was made a regular cast member. Before her acting career took off, Gibbs worked as a reservations agent at United Airlines, and she kept this job even after she started on The Jeffersons. Her voice was so recognizable that people often knew who they were speaking to before she even said her name. But that wasn't the only change. After Clyde's death, the producers decided to give Florence more screen time to fill the gap left by Mother Jefferson, and they offered Gibbs a full-time contract. She then left her job at the airline to focus entirely on acting. When The Jeffersons was suddenly canceled, Gibbs quickly found a new role as Mary Jenkins on the NBC sitcom 227, which ran for 5 years from 1985 to 1990. Her acting career continued with many roles in both movies and TV shows, including appearances in series like Passions, The First Family, Days of Our Lives, and Grey's Anatomy from 2022 to 2024. In her personal life, Gibbs married her high school sweetheart, Jordan Gibbs, in 1955. Their marriage lasted until 1973, and they had 3 children, Angela, Dorian, and Joseph. As of 2024, at 93 years old, Marla Gibbs is still active, taking part in interviews and continuing her acting work. Now we explore the lives and laughs of neighbors and friends, the interracial couple of the Jeffersons. But this wasn't the only interesting character on the Jeffersons. Tom Willis, played by Franklin Cover, was another unforgettable character. Tom and his family were neighbors to George and Louise, and their interactions often created some lively moments, especially since George was initially uncomfortable with Tom's interracial marriage. Tom, born just a few months before Franklin Cover on July 4, 1928, was a gentle and overly accommodating man who often seemed overshadowed by more assertive people, including his wife and sometimes George. At first, George often made fun of Tom with racially insensitive jokes, calling him names. But as the story progressed and their children got married, George and Tom developed a genuine friendship. This change in their relationship led Sherman Hemsley, the actor who played George, to push for a more respectful portrayal. Eventually, this led to the removal of any offensive language from the show. Tom frequently made light of his own size with humor. He once humorously remarked that the only way to mimic someone was to use a large amount of fat and some white paint. Tom, along with many of his colleagues from the cast and crew, was unaware that their show was coming to an end. He discovered the cancellation in the same manner as most people, which was by watching a television program. Tom found out from a segment on Entertainment Tonight. After the conclusion of The Jeffersons, Tom kept pursuing his acting career. He took roles in both movies and television, making appearances on several well-known television shows, including The Love Boat, All My Children, Who's the Boss, ER, and Will and Grace. His final professional acting role occurred in 1999. Tom was happily married to Mary Bradford Stone from 1965 until he died in 2006. He passed away on February 5th at 77 years old due to complications from pneumonia. Helen Willis, whose real name was Roxy Roker, played Jenny's mother and was a good friend of Louise. Helen was kind-hearted but had little patience for George's racial comments and always responded sharply. "You've always said it. George can be foolish and wrong, and you were absolutely right," Helen would argue. Both Helen and the actress who played her, Roxy Roker, were born in 1929, making them about 46 years old when the show started. Helen and Tom's characters were the first interracial couple on a sitcom, which was seen as bold and risky at the time. There was real concern that viewers might not accept a mixed-race couple on TV. "We were worried about their marriage on the show," the producers said. "It was something that had never been done before, and we didn't know how people would react." The producers warned Roker she might face serious public criticism for her role. When they asked if she was okay with acting in romantic scenes with a white man, Roker had a memorable response. She showed them her own wedding photo, revealing her husband was a white Jewish man named Cy Kravitz, just like her character's situation. Her willingness to play the role was clear, shaped by her own life experience. Interestingly, musician Lenny Kravitz is her son, and Al Roker, the well-known weatherman, is her cousin. After The Jeffersons ended, Roker had a pretty successful career, appearing in guest roles on shows like The Love Boat, ABC After School Special, 227, Punky Brewster, and Eliminate, She Wrote. Her last acting role was in a 1995 comedy short called Statistically Speaking. Sadly, she passed away at the age of 66 on December 2nd, 1995, from breast cancer that had spread. Finally, we celebrate the legacy of those who made us laugh, the trailblazing path of Isabel Sanford. Louise Jefferson, played by Isabel Sanford, was the strong mother figure of the show and the only one who could handle George's prejudiced remarks and mistreatment of others. "God made everyone equal, but it seems he skipped over your brain," she'd often say. In interviews, Sanford shared that her favorite part of playing Louise was that she always had the final word with her husband. Louise's character was born in 1929, making her about 46 when the show first aired. But Isabel Sanford, who played her, was born in 1917, making her 12 years older than her character. For her role, Sanford won a Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series. In 1981, she made television history by becoming the first Black woman to win an Emmy for a lead actress in a comedy. It was a groundbreaking moment. The only other Black actress to win this same award is Quinta Brunson, who took home the honor in 2023 for her role in the show Abbott Elementary. Sanford's journey to this achievement wasn't straightforward. She originally auditioned for a smaller role playing Louise's sister Maxine. She felt she hadn't done well and thought her chances were over. But the casting team saw something special in her performance. Instead of the minor role, they cast her as Louise. This character first appeared in the show All in the Family, when the producers decided to create a spin-off called The Jeffersons. Sanford didn't want to leave the original cast. However, the casting director gave her a tough choice: take the role or be replaced. So she felt she had no choice but to agree. While she was working on Norman Lear's shows, other Black actors also faced many difficulties. For example, John Amos from Good Times was fired because he was seen as too difficult. The cast of What's Happening was let go after arguing over pay. Eric Monty, who helped create many characters, including the Jeffersons, ended up homeless because of conflicts with Lear. Despite these struggles, Sanford stayed on The Jeffersons. Yet when the show was suddenly canceled, she was deeply upset with Lear and the network for not giving the cast of the show any proper closure. After The Jeffersons ended, Sanford found it hard to get major roles again. She mostly got small parts in different shows and movies until her final appearance in 2004. Her health started to decline after surgery, and she passed away later that same year. Did Norman Lear's shows do more harm than good for Black actors? Like, comment, and subscribe for more.